Hello, everybody. Are you ready to finish the Avengers story we started just last week? Well, I am. Spider-Man is ready. And look, Captain America and Hawkeye are on hand to help me tell the story. The story of four against the flood tide. But remember, last week there were only three against the flood tide: Captain America, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch. Where was Hawkeye? Well, let's start the story and we'll find out. All right, the editor catches us up with a ridiculous resume, or how complicated can a storyline get? All right, Henry Pym, our giant man, and Janet Van Dyne, the wonderful wasp, learn that Submariner is swimming towards New York. In an effort to alert the Avengers, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, the wasp flies after Subby, only to be captured by, who is our villain? Attuma and his undersea legions, who are causing the tides of Earth to rise in order to destroy mankind. Waspy escapes and warns the Avengers, who bravely tackle Attuma, all but Hawkeye, who missed the boat. Now, if you're still with us, give yourself a no prize and let's go. See, Hawkeye wasn't paying attention to the instructions. We should always pay attention to the instructions. And so he's in a subliminal recall inducer. All right. The Avengers are off on a mission, and I can't follow them until I remember what number to dial on our secret new Visi projector. Well, if anything will jog my bonehead memory back to life, this subliminal recall inducer ought to do it. Okay. Within the space of a single split second, the recall inducer has done its transistorized work. And then Hawkeye gets up. I've got it. The number has come back to me. Remember, Lucy? You remember the number. It's 1313. All right, it worked like a charm. But I could have sworn I heard a footstep behind me as I was sitting there. Do you remember? At the end of the last story, there was one more mysterious figure to this story, standing in the doorway. Hawkeye thinks, I may not have any so-called superpowers, but I've been in this hero business long enough to sense it when there's danger near. Whoever it is, he probably expected me to sit under that gizmo a lot longer than I did, so he didn't move fast enough. Thwop! Well, here he comes. Do y'all recognize this villain with the three-pronged suction cups and the big helmet? Hawkeye says, now it's too late. Nice try, Sonny, but I was expecting you. Who in Sam Hill is he? I never saw him before. Have you seen him before? Do you remember him now? All right, see the big wings in the background? He's pulling a control panel right out of the wall with those suction cup fingers of his. Say something, will you? Says Hawkeye. I hate to fight in silence. Here's an editor's note. Longtime Marvelites will recognize our newly arrived arch villain, but we'll keep our Johnny-come-latelys in suspense a while longer as a lesson to them. That's from sly old Stan. But I'm betting you remember. Wise-cracking buffoon, says the villain. I choose to let my deeds speak for me. Your gimmicky arrows can't protect you from one as powerful as I. Thack. Guess again, cornball, says Hawkeye. I don't know what how business is in the villain line, but you could make a pile if you ever decided to teach grammar, because he's talking a lot. I warned you, my impervious wings can shield me from anything. Clang! As one of Hawkeye's arrows bounces off his wing. Have you figured out the villain's name yet? Well, goody for you, says Hawkeye. We'll send you a no prize in the morning. But he thinks, I don't know who he is or what he wants, but I haven't time to find out now. The Avengers may need me. Swiftly pressing one of the countless emergency buttons which dot the walls, the master archer leaps through a noiselessly sliding steel door in one smooth, daring motion. And he thinks, this ought to get that nut off my back long enough for me to read the message on our Visi projector. There's nothing I like better than a nice, peaceful, dragged-out fight, but not when Winghead and his two shadows may be needing me. So he dodges the villain, and he dials the number. Remember, what's the number? 1313. And then I give a voice command. This is Avenger Hawkeye speaking. Show your message. It worked. That clown Stark is a real gasser, but holy smoke, it looks like real trouble. The message says, Hawkeye, Attuma about to attack Surface World. We're off to join us at latitude and longitude. But then, thoom, Hawkeye realizes, uh-oh, my sparring partner is stronger than he looked. He smashed through the steel door. And so, here he comes. The villain says, you cannot escape me by merely putting a door between us. Hawkeye says, well, if you know any better ways, I'm open to all suggestions. And then he thinks, those suction-tucked fingers of his are worth a regiment. They can stretch out and grab most anything. Lucky the message was programmed to fade after a second, so he couldn't have read it. He's pulling me to him. He's stronger than he looks, but we'll see what good that crummy strength does him against one of my flare arrows. And so Hawkeye grabs a flare arrow, lights it up, scrack. Ha! I thought this would make you let go. A sudden flare can be a mighty shocking thing. So he holds that flare right in front of the villain's eyes. And so the villain lets him go. You will pay for that, Avenger. Boy, says Hawkeye, that line must have come from page 1 of the supervillain's handbook. And then he says, the villain says, haven't you yet learned that no arrows can penetrate my invulnerable wings? Sure, says Hawkeye, I'm a real fast learner, chum, but you've got a lesson coming now. Ever been hit with a bolo arrow before? A bolo arrow? Look, his arrow shoots out with a bunch of grappling ropes that surround him and seize him. Whoosh! Sure, like the South American weapon. It wraps itself around you, or maybe you already noticed. Now, I sure hate to hit and run, but you'll have to excuse me. Hawkeye says, I've got a real important appointment to keep, but this gas capsule should keep you here till I return. Sweet dreams, Sunbeam. Whoosh! The gas arrow fills the room with sleeping gas, and so the villain is knocked out. All right. Have you remembered the name of the villain? I'm going to tell you. It's the Beetle. Okay? And the Beetle has fought against Spider-Man and the Human Torch. That was a long time ago. All right. Well, let's keep going. Meanwhile, far beneath the sea, within the giant submarine headquarters of Attuma, an astounding battle rages. But remember, the Avengers have flooded the combat area. Now Attuma cannot lose. True, says one of the henchmen, for the air in the Avengers' helmets is almost spent. Indeed, we shall tell our descendants about this sight. Mighty Attuma, defeating all 4 Avengers single-handed. But our warlord fights in his own element, water, the same water which saps the Avengers' strength. Not to mention the fact that he hasn't defeated all 4 Avengers, all right, because the 4th one is on his way. But the other soldier says, "Say no more. If Attuma heard your words, 'twould be the execution wall for you." And even as the undersea warriors watch, here comes Attuma grabbing Captain America. Cap thinks, Wanda tried to help us by smashing the floodgate, but now the water pressure is too great for us to resist. That means that Attuma's vast strength is certain to bring him victory, unless... But thanks to Attuma's sudden burst of speed, Captain America never quite finishes his desperate thought. "Ha," says Attuma, "your speed and skill and lightning-like reflexes are useless now, but I, a true water breather, can battle as powerfully as ever." Cap thinks, Quicksilver is racing to help me if I can just hold Attuma off long enough. And what of Hawkeye? He should have found our message by now. Why doesn't he show up when we need him the most? Don't be impatient, Marvelite. We'll show you what Hawkeye's doing within a couple of pages. Meanwhile, we've got some more amphibiotic action panels awaiting you. Amphibiotic? It means undersea. "There," says Attuma, "by the time the shield-carrying Avenger awakes, the battle will be ended." And Quicksilver realizes the water pressure slowed Cap down long enough for Attuma to connect. Thop! So poor Cap goes limp. But here comes Quicksilver, and he grabs the shield. "I can still move fast enough to stay out of reach. Perhaps if I take Cap's shield, I can find a way for it to serve me as well." Attuma thinks his speed is too great, but there are other ways. Suddenly, wheeling about and blinding the female Avenger with her own cape, I reduce her to total helplessness. Once again, what's wrong with this picture? Scarlet Witch has selected a costume with a cape. And a cape can easily be turned against the wearer, whether it's Doctor Doom or Scarlet Witch, whether it's a hero or a villain. Attuma thinks, knowing how stupidly gallant the surface men are, this is sure to bring the other quickly within my reach. And sure enough, Quicksilver says, "Wanda! He's imperiling Wanda, my sister." "No, Pietro, no!" cries Wanda. "Ha!" says Attuma, "I knew you would leap to her defense. How foolhardy of you to put yourself within my grasp." Quicksilver realizes, even with my great speed, the water slowed me down enough for Attuma to seize me, but I shall still fight on. And the onlooker says, the surface man's speed combined with the skill and courage enable him to resist the master's death grip longer than any other. And Wanda thinks, I've got to help Pietro, but I dare not use my hex. They're too close together. With Cap still unconscious, our only hope is that Hawkeye will reach us in time. But where can he be? Another bystander says, no matter, Quicksilver cannot break free, thus the end is only a matter of seconds. At that very moment, Hawkeye says, lucky I was able to borrow this aero sub from the Fantastic Four. Hey, what's going on down there? I never saw the tides so high. Do y'all remember? Why are the tides rising so high? Yes, it's Attuma's machine is raising the tides to overflow the surface world so that he can take over. Neither did anyone else see the tide so high. From every part of the globe, wherever ships ply the seas, the story is the same. Mayday! Mayday! Waters have gone mad. Waves 100 feet high. Getting worse. It's the same everywhere. There's no refuge we can head for. It's the sixth SOS within an hour, says the safety depot. I've never seen such a storm. That's just it. It's not a storm. It's like the tides are rising by themselves. Within minutes, every program is preempted from the air. Only news bulletins are broadcast over radio and TV. This is Chet Brinkley on the scene at Cap Hatteras. Storm warnings are up everywhere. Coastal cities are being evacuated. It's like a nightmare. Panic is mounting. Fanatics call it the end of the world. Or are they fanatics? Good night, David. And back at Attuma's gigantic sub, look! The female, stop her! No, it is too late. My only hope, she thinks, is to use my hex to break the glass enclosure. There, now if we will only provide the diversion we need. Whoosh! So great is the ensuing onrush of water that even Attuma's strength cannot resist the deluge, and so they go plummeting through the water. The current taking them onward. Thanks to Wanda, thinks Quicksilver, I have another breathing spell, but how long can it last? The water is their element, not ours. The odds are almost impossible. Quickly, says Attuma, mend the breach before our machines become waterlogged. Quicksilver says, I can't see Wanda or Cap, but directly ahead of me, some sort of tunnel-like tube. Perhaps it may lead to safety. But one of Attuma's warriors has seen Quicksilver's move. He says, the fool, he seized his own doom. All I need do is throw this lever. Ha! Little did he dream he had taken refuge in a vacuum-powered ejector tube. Says Quicksilver. The sudden change in pressure will be more than his air-breathing body can endure, as Quicksilver is ejected from the submarine ship and is hurled out into the seas. Slowly, limply, the courageous mutant rises to the surface, the air in his helmet finally exhausted. How simple it would be to save himself by removing the headpiece, if he were conscious. But an inscrutable fate works in mysterious ways, as we see minutes later. And we hear a voice saying, wake up, mister. I'm getting tired of talking to myself. Quicksilver wakes up. What? 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 I'm still alive. I can still fight. You'll never get me. Whoa, son. Look, it's Hawkeye. Hawkeye says, simmer down. I'm on your side, remember? Hawkeye, says Quicksilver, it's you. You found us. What's with the us jazz? All I found was one floating Avenger, more dead than alive. If I'd been a few seconds later, forget it. Wanda, Cap, says Quicksilver, Attuma still has them prisoners below. Hurry, man, hurry. I'll explain as we go. And explain he does, until a few seconds later. What sub are you talking about, Whitey? It was right there, says Quicksilver. I'll never forget that spot, but now it's gone. Hawkeye says, well, I didn't need you to tell me that. Hawkeye, what can we do now? We don't know where they went. Don't know even whether they're alive or dead. While we're wondering, looks like we got a bigger worry heading for us over there, an armed patrol sub. Wow, they just go from one trouble to another. Zapped. What luck. It's Attuma's men. Why is that lucky? Because they'll lead us to him. If you ask me, they've got other ideas, kind of like blasting us clean out of the sea. Give me those controls, Avenger. I can manipulate them faster than you. Sure, Whitey, says Hawkeye, be my guest. And so look, his hands are just flying. And Hawkeye thinks, he's not kidding. He's moving like greased lightning. Never saw him so fighting mad before. You did it, Quickie. You maneuvered rings around them. They'll never get us now. But we mustn't lose them. They must lead us to Captain America and my sister. Look, another scout ship. We'll need all your speed now. Hang on, says Quicksilver. The controls of this craft respond as though they're alive. Tony Stark is indeed a genius. Well, Hawkeye explains, Stark didn't build this one, Pietro. I got it from the FF. But Reed Richards ain't exactly a slouch either. So we got two scientific engineering geniuses in these stories. We must stay just out of range of their blast rays until they turn tail and head for the mother ship so that we can follow them. Then we've got to polish off this Attuma guy fast. There's big trouble up above. The seas have gone crazy. That's just it, answers Quicksilver. The one responsible is Attuma himself. It's part of his plan to conquer mankind. How about that, says Hawkeye. These days it must be open season on the human race, huh? Hawkeye, hold on. Look what's ahead of us. What's ahead of them? Oh my word! Ah! What is that? It's a big old brother. It looks like a refugee from one of those Japanese monster movies. Well, it's a big old octopus, that's for sure. Well, what are you waiting for, Whitey? This ship has a brake, hasn't it? Yes, but we can't use it, remember? The patrol ships are still on our tail. We've only one chance. It all depends upon my speed at these controls. And so, what's Quicksilver gonna do? He's aiming right for that gigantic monster. You're batty, son. No matter how fast you move, we can't slip past that thing. Have you forgotten our pursuers? They shall help us. Now I know you flipped. How will they help us? I haven't time to talk. Just watch. So look, Quicksilver is slipping that speedboat in between the tentacles. Then maneuvering his tiny craft with the speed and skill of a master, Quicksilver manages to evade the monster squid's tentacles long enough for the two patrol ships to get within range. It worked. They couldn't dart away in time, so he caught them. And now, while his attention is diverted, they're going to slip on past the monster. Now we're still nowhere. Without those two scout ships, how are you going to find Attuma? There aren't any road signs down here. Road signs down here, pal. We don't need them, Hawkeye. Just look yonder, behind that massive rock formation. What do you see? Well, it sure ain't a good humor truck, so I figure you did it, Whitey. Now, let's go get 'em. All right. Even as the two eager Avengers near their goal, we see Captain America and Scarlet Witch bound and in front of Attuma, who says, I have repaired my vessel and increased the oxygen quotient so that your punishment will not be as simple as mere suffocation. Cap says, things look pretty hopeless, but Attuma has one weak chink in his armor. This is the time for me to play upon his colossal vanity. Too bad, Wanda, says Cap. The thing I regret most is that we're dying for nothing. Attuma is nothing but a phony. What do you mean? Asks Scarlet Witch. He has no machine to make the tides rise. He wouldn't dare attack the surface world. It's all a big bluff. Phony, am I? Bluff, is it? I'll show you my machine. I'll drive that lie back into your sniveling throat. You'll rue those words before you die. Good, thinks Cap. He's reacting just as I hoped he would. Scant seconds later, They're in the control room, and Attuma is showing Cap everything. Cap thinks, so this is his control room. Now, brags Attuma, see for yourselves. My view screens show how high the tides of Earth have already risen. Within a few hours, every coastal city will be completely flooded, and within a few days, all of Earth's surface will be underwater. Yes, underwater, waiting for Attuma to take sovereignty over all who are left alive. And now that you realize Attuma does not bluff, it is time for you to meet your fate. Don't be too sure of that, says Cap, and he thinks, since I goaded him into revealing where his control center is, I've got to find some way to wreck it before I cash in. And he whispers, don't despair, Wanda. Stay close to me and follow my lead. She answers, I shall never despair, Steve, while an Avenger lives. And at that moment, here are two more Avengers above Attuma's sub. Ready, Hawkeye? Ready, partner. Then hold on. It's time to attack. Yeah, that's the name of the game. How are they going to attack? Uh-oh, they see another patrol boat coming at us. What do you know? Ain't it nice to feel wanted? Come on, lean on that throttle. Boom! And they push their water ship right through the glass windows of the gigantic submarine. No time to search for an opening. We'll have to crash right in. But if you flood the place, what'll happen to Cap and Wanda? I didn't think of that, says Quicksilver. I've got to get to them in time. We're in luck, says Hawkeye. Look, Attuma has an automatic device which dropped a new glass wall in place of the one we crashed through. Well, that's clever. No matter, we must still reach the others. Uh-oh, says Hawkeye. Looks like Attuma's playmates have other plans for us. Some ray gun shoots at him. Quicksilver says, I'll keep them busy till you can sling your arrows. Let's go. Bok, thack, whick! Quicksilver goes bam, 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 and hits the attackers. Hawkeye says, man, I never thought even Quicksilver could move so fast. When his sister is in danger, he doesn't kid around. Nothing he needs from me except maybe applause. Big zap, whip, thip. That takes care of all of them, goes Quicksilver. Let this be an answer to those who claim the new Avengers are lacking in power. Yeah, Quicksilver is a pretty powerful character. Suddenly, a mammoth automatic field piece lumbers into view, and Attuma's henchman says one wide-angle shock shell will stop the lightning-like one forever. The other one says we must teach the insolent surface creatures the folly of daring to interfere with all-powerful Attuma. But before the fateful button can be pressed, behold, the other one, he has fired an arrow, and here it comes. It looks like a pretty big, pretty special arrow. I think this is a super deluxe blast arrow. Batoing! Ah! Truer words were never mumbled as the arrow strikes the weapon. While in the control section of the giant sub, a henchman says, Master, 2 additional surface men dare to attack us. What? Says Attuma. This I shall deal with personally. Remove the prisoners. When I am done, we shall have 4 executions instead of 2. Cap whispers, a diversion. This will make our task easier. Move, surface swine. You will wait in the dungeon. Quickly, Wanda, this is our chance. Pretend to faint. Faint? Well, that's what female damsels are. That's what they do best, right? They faint. Very well, says Wanda, but be careful, Steve. Don't worry, says Steve. I've been working on my ropes. They're almost loose enough. Oh, Wanda faints. On your feet, woman, or I fire. Now, says Cap, while they've turned away. There, it snapped. Thick. No time to work on handcuffs. So far as my arms are free, I can fight. Look out, the masked one is, The name's Captain America, mister, but you can call me Cap. Stand aside, careless fool. I'll attend to him. Well, what does he think he's going to do? Nothing. Next, the red, white, and blue Avenger, with one seemingly effortless motion, seizes the second guard in a judo hold and then, thump, tosses him away. So far, so good, but we still have to wreck Attuma's flood tide machine before it's too late. First, let me get these shackles off of you. Tell me, Captain America, do you never know fear? Only a fool or a liar says he's never afraid, Wanda. There, now my hex can free you. Zap. Thanks, lady. Now get ready to move. Meanwhile, in another part of the sub, there are Quicksilver and Hawkeye. They're trapped. Just another few seconds to catch my breath, and I'll zoom into them again. I'm down to my last arrow. It's been nice knowing you, Whitey. So, says Attuma, they are trapped, but they do not surrender. Good. The longer they resist, the more sport we shall have. And look, zing, 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 zing. Their blast ray guns are shooting everywhere. But when their resistance begins to bore me, says Attuma, I shall signal the Y-ray tank to end our little game. Not till we get our turn at bat. Who said that? Well, who do you think? Clang! And Captain America sends his calling card. If you've forgotten my name, there's my calling card. Good shot, Cap. Now let's even the odds, Avenger. But as Cap races to retrieve the shield, this villain says, there's still time for me to seize the controls and save the day. What enchantment is this? I'm frozen to the spot. I cannot move. What enchantment? Who's the enchantress? Well, of course, we know it's Scarlet Witch. That hex of yours was just what I needed, Wanda, and now you help Hawkeye and your brother. But what about you? I'll join you soon. I've got something to do. And he yanks out Attuma's henchman. This is the end of the line for you, friend. All out. The best way to help while Cap is gone is to take over this monstrous machine myself. I guess that's a Scarlet Witch. I don't know quite what it's doing, but it certainly is doing it well. Shoosh! As the exhaust from the machine knocks out all of these henchmen. Stop the tank! Stop the tank! They do not heed me. I have lost command. Cowards, turn back. Attuma commands. And then even Attuma himself prepares to retreat. The Y-ray coming closer. Nothing that lives can survive it. I too must flee, but my plan goes on. Each passing moment brings the surface world closer to doom. First, making certain that all of Attuma's warriors are gone, Hawkeye and Quicksilver leap onto the tank to find that Captain America has already rejoined Scarlet Witch. How wonderful, says Wanda. We are all together again as Avengers, and we have triumphed once more. Quicksilver says, Wanda, you're safe. I knew in my heart that no harm could come to you, especially with Captain America nearby. Quick hidden, with Winghead around, she might have plain died of boredom. Say, wait, what about the Wasp? Didn't she send us our message? Quicksilver says, I searched for her earlier at top speed. There was no trace of her. She must have escaped before we got here. And Captain says, let's hope that's the reason we can't find her. Wanda says, but wait, I almost forgot the most important thing. What about the floods which Attuma was causing? What good does it do for us to win our battle if the human race is losing theirs? Minutes later, after reaching the FF's aero sub, don't worry about the human race, Wanda. It's a lot more rugged than its enemies suspect. But Cap, there were floods which threatened to wipe out the entire seacoast. But a threat is a far cry from a deed. Cap, you don't understand. This is probably Hawkeye. For him, that's nothing new. At ease, Hawkeye, says Cap. And in his control room, with a few still loyal warriors, Attuma sees they're escaping. But I can still stop them. I'll increase the pressure of my flood tide machine. It will cause the waters nearby to crush their ship like an eggshell. No, something is wrong. The control lever is not responding. It's reversing its function. The increased pressure is coming into my own ship. It's sabotage. Someone has tampered with the control. It can only mean who? Who do you think tampered with the control? But alas, we'll never know what it can only mean, as Attuma's frantic soliloquy is rather rudely interrupted. Wharoom! Lots of big sounds in this story. It's been kind of fun to tell. So much for Attuma's flood tide machine and the watery menace to mankind. Quicksilver realizes, so that's why you were missing for a while, Cap. You set up the control panel so it would explode. But the editor says, let's skip the pat on the back bit and rejoin the Avengers again a few hours later as they race into their headquarters. Cap says, I thought you left some new attacker tied up here, Hawkeye. I did, Methuselah. I don't know how he got away. Listen, says Quicksilver, our alarm signal is sounding. What does it sound like, kids? Whee! This is amazing. It's the last thing I'd have ever expected. Cap says, don't just stand there, man. Tell us, who is the message from? What does it say? Hawkeye thinks, I still can't figure out who that metal-winged nut was or how he got away. Wanda says, my intuition tells me the Avengers are facing a new crisis. The message concerns, guess who, Lucy? It concerns the Wasp. Next issue, more of the Wasp and the Beetle. Meet the Collector and the return of Giant Man. Enough said. All right, so that's the finish of the story about Attuma. All right, I wonder what's next for the Avengers. Back at last, it's Giant Man, only he changes his name, and the title is Among Us Walks a Goliath. And so the Avengers now are Captain America, Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Goliath. And if Henry Pym is there, the Wasp is flying around somewhere, right? Okay, well, this story turned out to be a long Papa video. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll be back with another story later on. Until then, I love y'all. Bye-bye for now.